This is Food for Thought with Deborah Walker. Hi everybody and welcome to this week's Food for Thought. I have the lovely Dr Brian McDonogh with me today, and he's here today to dispel the myth that cholesterol is bad for you, hopefully once and for all. So hello Brian, how are you?
Good day, and good day to your listeners, Debbie.
Now, you're not from the UK, I can hear that. So do you want to give everybody a little bit of background about yourself, Brian, just so that they know who you are as well?
Certainly. I was actually born and raised in South Africa, and that's where I actually studied medicine. And once I qualified as a doctor, I went into private practice there as a general practitioner or a family practitioner. And during the course of those years, I became aware, sometimes acutely so, that modern medicine certainly does not hold all the cards when it comes to promoting good health. And about 18 years ago, my family and I immigrated to the UK, where we've been living in the south of England in a place called Horsham, and I'm practicing a more natural form of medicine now, mostly because of the studies that I did at the University of Surrey, which I finished in 2001. That was a master's degree in nutritional medicine. And that led me into an interest in integrative medicine and functional medicine. And I found these to be extremely useful tools, together with my medical knowledge, on how to best serve and work in partnership with my patients. Because as you know yourself as a practitioner, you're working in partnership with people. They won't improve if they don't listen to you, and you certainly won't give the right advice if you haven't listened to them. So basically, I think to summarize what I do now is I've stopped trying to fit patients or clients or people into a medical model. I've rather tried to take the time to realize that every person as an individual has their own model that's perfect for good health, and we just need to find that and get them back onto that particular path. And that is a way that I feel a doctor is living up to the name, the meaning of the name doctor, because I'm not sure if your listeners know what the word doctor actually means. It does not mean healer, it means teacher. And so, like yourself, Debbie, I try to teach people, show them what's going wrong, and guide them onto a better path for their own health. One of the sayings I often quote is, "If you stay on the road you are on, you will end up where you are going." And it's to show them where their particular path could change for better things, so that they can take control over their health. For ultimately, the responsibility for our health lies fairly and squarely on us. We cannot rely on a health service to always be there and do the right things for us.
It's really interesting what you're saying there. Let me just pick up on some of your points initially. You're saying something that I hear from very few doctors, which is that you work in partnership with your patient over their health, so that they can take control. A lot of doctors will, and I know this, I'm going to talk from personal experience rather than talk about my own clients.
Fair enough.
So in effect, you go to the doctor, when I was going to the doctor, and you sit next to someone who looks directly at their computer and tells you just to take this medication now, and there's no feeling of partnership there. You're more or less told that what to do, and when you challenge that, you're then, from my own experience, almost looked, their glasses moved to the end of their nose, and it's almost like, I have the authority here, and just do as you're told. And so it's a very different approach that you're actually practicing, isn't it, Brian?
Yes, well, without upsetting doctors, I think that medical practitioners have painted themselves into a corner, really, because as the years have gone by, if you go back to Hippocrates' day, Hippocrates would be a real fish out of water today in the surgery down the road, wouldn't he? In fact, he would probably be struck off the medical register. However, doctors have forgotten, shall I say, put it nicely, doctors have forgotten two arts. The one is to respect fellow man and to love. We are called to love fellow man. Well, we're not. It's all about love. If you don't show love, and in the medical consultation, that is translated as respect. So if doctors have lost respect for the person sitting in their consulting room, then that will over time lead to that type of behavior where the patient sort of feels that they are more a nuisance. You see, I don't know about all countries, but in the UK, one gets the impression that the system exists for the sake of the system and not for the sake of the patient. And the other way that doctors have painted themselves into a corner is with the consultation time. And I've noticed this, and I own this feeling, all right? This opinion is only my own, and I own it fully. But what I've seen happen to myself and to other doctors over the years, because I've been a doctor over 30 years now, what I've seen happening is that a culture has developed where there's so little time to actually listen, examine, and properly think about a management plan, and the English being very polite, who would not say, look, you must now leave. What happened was a sign, a signal, it is time to leave. And what the easiest option was a piece of paper we call a prescription. So when you're sitting there and 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes have gone by and you know that you haven't been heard, and you are handed a prescription, that is the signal, get up and go. It's a polite way of saying your time is up.
It's a bit like Pavlov's dog then. Yeah. We've been trained.
And that's why so many people are saying it's just such a waste of time going to the doctors, because they don't listen to me. And they always give me drugs. Now, if you had time constraints, and you may also listen with half an ear and quickly give someone a supplement and say, off you go. But we don't practice that way. We respect our patients. So we listen to them. And listening to somebody is a way of saying, I care about you. Because ultimately, what do we want as practitioners? We want to leave the world a healthier place. And so we can only achieve that through being humble, realizing that we do not know everything, certainly not about medicine or about nutrition. So to be humble and always question ourselves, do something we call safety netting. Now, every time I do safety netting, I find, I shouldn't be giving this supplement to that patient because, in fact, it clashes with a drug they've been given by their doctor. That's just an example. So instead of saying, oh, this is the answer to your problem, is to question yourself slightly and say, are you quite sure this is the answer for this particular individual? Just make sure. So that the arrogance that we find in medicine today can disappear. And that's why I use that word partnership. It's a very important word, and I'm so glad you picked up on it, because I only feel good about myself when I feel I'm working in partnership with people so that they can be free from their mystifying symptoms and have some knowledge about how to manage their own health. Then I feel I'm doing my job.
I feel part of my role as a naturopath is, as you say, to be an educator. I always set aside at least 20 to 30 minutes of my sessions to actually explain what I'm seeing is happening in the individual's health and how we can work together to actually move it forward and what they will need to do. And often what I find is that my clients will write their own treatment plans. If I say to them, what do you think you should do from what I've explained? And they will clearly tell me. They'll tell me about their diet. They'll tell me about intuitively they've known not to be doing certain things. And this is where almost it's not so much an educator. I end up at the end of it as a coach, and they will have constructed part of their treatment plan themselves. Now, obviously, my extra knowledge about herbals and homeopathics and the specifics around nutrition come into play with that. But actually, that teaching role means that my clients have a very good success rate in regards to taking on board the changes and running with them and doing it themselves. Do you find the same thing?
Exactly. Well, the word here is compliance, isn't it?
Yes.
We know that from every year we hear on the television that only 50% of prescribed drugs are ever taken. Yeah. So that shows that there's a very low level of compliance. Whereas in our industry, with one exception, in our industry, I find that people are totally compliant because they have their own best will at heart. The exception I was thinking of is one I'm not sure if you've come across yet, but it's where someone in a family will decide for someone else they've got to go and see whichever practitioner for a particular reason, but that the person with the so-called problem is resistant. They don't want to. They don't trust natural medicine. They just only believe in their GP and what conventional medicine has to offer. And so they come reluctantly, they don't take on board what you're saying, and they don't follow any plan. So that's the exception, really, is where people need to be wholehearted about what they're doing. And what we in our industry can do to improve that is to increase people's perception of what we do, that we are safe practitioners, and that we get results. We live in a throwaway society where people expect to feel better almost immediately. And they've been groomed into that way of thinking by the pharmaceutical companies. That's all good and well in acute problems. So, for example, you cut yourself and you need local anesthetic and stitches. You go through pain, but there's a quick fix. Or you have a sports injury and you take an anti-inflammatory for a short time, and it really does help you to get back on your feet and get to work. So that's where conventional medicine is really good. But where it fails is with chronic ailments. There is not one drug on the market that was invented or created for chronic complaints. So if you have a chronic condition like arthritis, for example, and you're relying only on conventional medicine, you're going to be taking anti-inflammatories and occasionally steroids as well on an ongoing basis. and then you must expect to get side effects, because no drug is made for long-term use. But this is where the word arrogance comes in. I've got quite a strong feeling about the arrogance of practitioners and doctors. I think it's really arrogant for a doctor or practitioner to assume that their way is the best way. Just because that's what they studied. We need to remember that there are many disciplines in both conventional and natural medicine. There are many disciplines, and very often you will have heard as well, I often hear it myself, people with a chronic condition say, yes, this helped, that helped, everything helps, but nothing works. And I've had to think about that, because the first time I heard it, I thought, everything helps, but nothing works. What does that mean? It means that they've tried naturopathy, homeopathy, acupuncture, nutritional medicine, functional medicine, all these, and they've tried, each one helps them, but nothing actually cures the problem. So basically, that arrogance needs to disappear. We as practitioners need to remember the privileged position we are in. We're in a tremendously privileged position. Now, even kings come to us, don't they? It's been that way all through history. No matter who you are, you will need a doctor or someone in a healing profession. So we need to be less arrogant and rely on each other more, and saying, actually, you know what, I don't have all the answers. I think you should go and see so-and-so for that particular aspect of your problem, because that will help you more. So if we get, the point I'm getting at is, if the client goes to one practitioner and then another and then another, and they give up what they were doing before, then they lead to that opinion where they say everything helps but nothing works. But if we as practitioners were working together for the sake of the patient, then all those things that are helping done together would work. And then the patient would say, actually, you know what, I'm now better. I know exactly how to look after myself. I'm feeling good. And I'm seeing a number of practitioners who are in communication with one another, and the partnership now extends into a wider net, because if you are in partnership with your client, that's what I would call a closed system. If we include the GP and the acupuncturist and the massage therapist and the naturopath, the homeopath, etc., where indicated, we are widening that net. And not only are we widening that partnership, but we're improving the chances of the person saying, yes, everything works and I am better. So that's my point. We need to be less arrogant, and we need to embrace other cultures in medicine that have been shown to be useful.
I really agree with that philosophy. Actually, I'm very much an advocate of working collectively with other practitioners, and I have a number of people around me who I will bring in when I am working on a client to work with me on that. And I know full well that we can pass information, the client knows backwards and forwards between us, so that bit by bit we can move that client collectively forward. So I totally agree with you there, because I never feel that I have the answer. So when clients come to me, and interestingly enough, I had someone just recently who'd actually had that happen to them. They'd seen a number of different people, and I was kind of the next one. And I explained to them that it wasn't just going to be me who potentially would see them. I would see them for the first session, and then I would basically put a plan together that may include myself and a number of other disciplines with other practitioners, and we would then effectively work on the individual to move them forward. I'm very much, I don't know if you've read the Rudolph Ballantyne book, and he actually talks about that philosophy where we have to either be more multidisciplined in ourselves, or effectively be very much that we will work with other practitioners.
Yeah, but I don't know if you have the same frustrations that I have, because when I see a client and I write to the GP, I just get the feeling, am I only doing this to satisfy a rule of the Care Quality Commission, one of the controlling bodies that I'm registered with, or am I doing it knowing that the doctor's actually going to even read it or write back or give a suggestion or even offer some information that they have on that patient that I may not know? I send those letters out with less and less faith, and it saddens me. In my own walk, once I realized that, unfortunately, I had probably studied the wrong kind of medicine, I thought, let's try and bring these two worlds together, because the arrogance of the modern pharmaceutical industry is that their way is far better than what God or creation has provided. And that's terribly arrogant, because now 60 years down the line, we see how many people are dying from side effects of drugs. Your listeners in the United States will know that every year there more or less 120,000 people die from the side effects of prescribed drugs. And I always think to myself, what if all those people, 120,000 of them, were actually in jumbo jets, say 350 jumbo jets, and they all crashed into the ground and died? Would we hear about it on the news? It would be splashed everywhere. But nobody hears about 120,000 deaths in the United States every year. It's just swept under the carpet. It's not publicized. So we know that the system is not perfect. And I try to encourage doctors, colleagues, to try and at least consider, before they think of a drug, think of something more sensible that has been shown over millennia to be useful. Think of those things before bringing the prescription pad closer. But then there are the time constraints we spoke of earlier, and that's where I feel that's why so many family practitioners and general practitioners are frustrated and depressed, is because they feel like pawns, just pushing medicines that they know won't cure the person. Why do you think it's so difficult to get a doctor's appointment? It's because people are not getting better. If you take, just from a financial point of view, let's say that the health service was a business and you were going to invest in it. And you say, all right, we are going to take a massive amount of money of the gross national product and put it into a health service where the only outcome must be good health. Yeah? Mm-hmm. We're doing it to improve the health of the nation. Everyone would say, that sounds like a good idea. So we're going to put in all this massive amount of money into a system, but we are going to all benefit and be healthier. That would mean there would be fewer people in the doctor's surgery, but the system has failed. So what happened is, because people are not getting better, I'm talking about the chronically ill, they have to go back and go back and go back for more and more drugs that were not designed for long-term use. And so can you see that from a financial point of view, it's silly to say, all right, we've invested all this money in a system that's not giving us better health. I'm generalizing now. Mm-hmm. On the whole, is not giving us better health. The nation has become more and more chronically ill. So as a business venture, what would you have to say about the health service now? So when the everyday man in the street realizes, hang on, I'm paying a lot of money into a system that's not working. We need the system to change. And the first thing the system can do is to accept that fact, that they don't have all the answers and that the system is failing the people. Not only are their medicines failing the people, but the consultation with the doctor is a poor excuse for the love we are called to serve one another with.
It is interesting because, as you say, you know, the waiting lists are getting longer and longer and longer. You know, I know from clients who can be waiting significant amounts of time to just have basic things looked at, and often will struggle to get tests even when I've specifically sent them for tests. You know, it is profit driven though, isn't it, fundamentally? And when you've got at the top of that shareholders within companies who need to be fed, you are unlikely to be getting a system that is one driven by health and a focus on health and reducing those numbers down, but one that is far more interested in increasing those numbers. And you see this by the multi-uses of medications. So medications will come out for one thing, and then they'll be finding other reasons to use them in other arenas, as well as you know, other age groups that often haven't even been tested. They haven't been tested with.
Exactly. Precisely. So what in my own experience, what happened to me was that I just felt, because I think, all right, before we're going to, if you take for cholesterol, for example, before we're going to just prescribe a statin drug, why don't we do something far more sensible? Look at the person's lifestyle. Look at the mistakes they're making with their diet. And look at their family history, and how can we best serve that person by getting we can talk about high cholesterol levels versus low cholesterol levels, because there are all sorts of inaccuracies in the media today about cholesterol. But my point is, how can we best look at the use of exercise, diet, supplements, and natural therapies, all the various natural therapies, before prescribing a drug. Now, if we can promote that way of thinking in modern medicine, we'll do the people a massive good service. I feel that prescription drugs should be the last resort after you've tried everything else. And if you're doing all the other things, the dose of the prescription medicine would be much lower in any case. If you're only relying on a drug, then you're going to have to use higher doses. And of course, you're going to get much higher side effects then. So that's my view on it. We need to educate doctors and the public on the benefits of natural medicine. That means that you and I, Deborah, need to be more effective, because what really changes a person's heart is if they've been to see you and they're feeling better, and they reach a point where they say, you know what, I'm not taking this prescription drug anymore because it really makes me ill, and I'm feeling better from what Deborah is doing with me. So there you've got a convert, you see, and then that person will tell someone else. We need our natural medicine to be effective. it needs to be effective. If it's not effective and perceived to be effective by both conventional medicine and by the public at large, we will not succeed. I don't know what your views are on that, but I think the more we can apply our knowledge and our studies to better treatments that are more effective, and working together in a wider net of partnership, the better. The sooner that happens, the better. Because there are so many people that you are seeing and that I am seeing that a large proportion of their problem is a side effect of the multitude of drugs they're taking.
One of my biggest issues, Brian, is the fact that people are not just put on one medication, but a number of medications, and the pharmacology, the mixture of medications that they will be given, not even their consultant can be clear about what will now be happening. And some of them, I don't know about your clients, but some of my clients are on 3, 4, 5 different medications, and some of the consultants haven't spoken to each other about what they've prescribed.
That's right. Well, 3, 4, 5. Deborah, you are much older than you are, I'm sure, because I have seen too many people on 12, 13, 14 different drugs. It is a massive problem. It really is. And the older you are, it's as if something that was given to you before is never taken away.
Yeah.
They just add to the list.
I find that.
And it's just silly, It's silly medicine, and it's not working. And it's a poor excuse. It really is a poor excuse to say, well, that's all we've got. The truth is there's a massive amount of information. It doesn't matter what country even. If you look at Ayurvedic medicine, there's 5,000 years of experience there using plants and roots and leaves or natural things to help us. But the European Parliament have seen fit to think, oh no, that's a load of rubbish. We don't want Ayurvedic medicines in Europe. And it's just silly. The constraints on natural medicine, to me, saying to Mother Nature, what you've provided for our health is not good enough. We know better. We make pharmaceutical drugs. That to me, and I use the word evil very seldom, but to me that is not right. It's just wrong. And if we had pharmaceutical companies working on natural molecules that we find in nature and helping us in natural medicine to improve our supplements in that way, where we're giving more specific things at a correct dosage, that would be a wonderful step forward if the pharmaceutical industry would embrace natural medicine in a more humble way and recognize that the end of the road they've reached the end of the road now with drugs. It's just not going to improve the chronically ill marketplace. Those people are suffering and they need help, and they deserve respect, and they deserve someone with knowledge to actually listen to them and get them on a different road that will help them feel better and live longer.
I feel, from my perspective, that the pharmaceutical companies are very interested in doing research into botanicals, your fish oils, your nutrients, but it's also that they can actually then take it and get the law changed in Europe so that fundamentally people like ourselves can't use it, but they can patent it. So I don't know what your feeling is about that, but that's...
Well, I touched on the word evil, and I think you're touching on it too. I think that is a great disservice to mankind. You see, people who stand up for good health should be standing up for good health, not for the bank balance, not for the bank balance. And big industry, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what market you're in, whether you're in farming or in the food industry or in or in medicine, it doesn't matter. Big companies, in my opinion, are failing to meet their most basic responsibilities to good health. I think that you're right when you say that money drives everything. Unfortunately, we live in a society like that now, the throwaway society. And talking to people who do farming, there's some really wonderful new farming methods where people are using wood chips, just breaking down naturally to refeed the soil, so that and getting in livestock again, so that soil can be properly fertilized. The food that we are finding on the supermarket shelves are basically empty calories nowadays. Mm-hmm. People have to spend extra money to get proper food, and that's wrong. And the food industry, in my mind, has also failed. So it's not only the pharmaceutical companies; it's everything to do with good health, right from the farming methods. In the UK, you know the studies that were done back in after the Second World War, in the late 1940s, where 2,000 different soil sites on farms were identified in the UK and all the mineral levels measured. 50 years later, the same sites were measured again. And I'm not sure if your listeners know this, but in that 50 years of poor farming practice, modern farming practice, the mineral content at those 2,000 soil sites was less than 50% of what levels were in the late 1940s. Now, that shocks me because our bodies rely on nutrition when we eat. We should be getting the minerals from the soil. But if the minerals are not in the soil, it doesn't matter how beautiful the plant looks. The minerals are not going to be in your food. And so we're sitting with a situation today where we're saying, okay, I'm on a tight budget, so I can't go out and buy organic food for every meal that I eat. So I'm going to have to supplement my diet with nutritional supplements. And I think if we see ourselves as an advancing race where everything is getting better, why is the most basic thing that we need getting worse? And that's our food.
Well, it's profit driven again, isn't it? Basically, if you look at agriculture, it has become large business focused, and agribusiness has taken over it. The large manufacturers have taken over it significantly in the production of food, and as that's happened, the quality of it has dropped because it's been about shelf life. It's not been about our life at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's full of preservatives, And fortunately, the public are becoming aware of the bad effects of some of the additives in our food, and big business is still pushing them. I mean, you still find some artificial sweeteners in just about every food item imaginable. And I dare not mention a name there because of fear, which is another bad thing. Why am I scared to mention a particular name? Why am I scared? That's also wrong. It's also wrong. Why can't I publicly say a particular sweetener is really bad for you because it's made up of 3 poisons? And why is it in so many of our products? So big business have their muscle boys, they muscle in on us practitioners, and they threaten us, and they're horrible. They're just horrible. And they go about their business of providing food for the public, which they should be providing good food and good quality food, and they're putting rubbish into it, and then threaten anyone who opposes them. I'm quite frankly even shocked at the fact that I have to mention this. I didn't realize I had this feeling in me. Why am I scared? And it's because of what I see happening to colleagues of mine as well, what's happened to me. And conventional medicine has got big muscles. They've got big muscles, and they're not going to tolerate people like us. That's why the only way I think the answer really is to sway public opinion, and we can only sway it through being better practitioners. So really what it means, doesn't it, Deborah? We need to be really good.
Yeah, we have to make it so
and
that
each
people...
one of us,
okay,
each one of us doing the best we can, and really loving people. And loving people, as I said earlier, means being humble, questioning yourself, listening to them, respecting them, and teaching them, and helping them on that road.
The thing is, people will vote with their feet. They will absolutely vote with their feet. They will make the choice when they start to see the benefits. And the majority of my practice has grown because of referrals. It's not been because of advertising. It's actually been because somebody has got well and then told somebody else, and then they've told somebody else, and people see the results of their friends and family.
I would agree with that.
And I believe that is, we are a flea on their back. But and I'm going to say that I'm not that bothered about saying stuff. I will make it so that they can scratch and scratch and scratch and scratch, and I will stay there, because my aim is to grow this practice and to educate as many of my clients so that they will then go out and create a ripple effect. It's never about me, it's about what my clients can actually achieve with them and their own families, because we all hold the wisdom in my eyes of what good health is, and just some of us have forgotten it, and we've gone down the wrong path, and all they need is often placing back on the right path, understanding their own health, and then by educating them, full well that they will then go out and educate others, and if nothing else, they'll educate their own children. And that is my aim, because myself on my own will never change things potentially, but myself and my client base, if all I do is influence 7 people and they influence 7 people, cumulatively, I'm going to be a big itch for them to scratch eventually.
Good for you, Deborah. Good for you. And I hope that certainly in the UK, that the legislation allows for practitioners to be free. So I, for example, wanted to study further in herbal medicine. And so I was going to embark on a course on herbal medicine, only to find that it had been shut down. Because of the threats against herbs. The government really needs to think twice before they listen to the pharmaceutical industry. They're making fools of themselves in terms of poor legislation against natural medicine.
One of the colleagues that you were talking about, Jane Donegan, she's been one of the doctors who've spoken out, in particular about vaccinations, and they have taken her over the coals for her speaking out. And today I'm actually going to be doing a number of interviews, and which will be coming out over the next few weeks, and I'm interviewing Suzanne Humphreys, MD in the States, about the vaccine history, and you were talking about bully boy tactics and fear. Jane Donegan has done the foreword to the book Dissolving Illusions, and she talks about the bully boy tactics that have basically almost stopped her from being a practitioner, and but this book in particular outlines the history of bully boy tactics that have been taken by our medical people and the government over the years, going back hundreds of years. So it's not just now it's been happening. It's a long history behind the tactics and the fear in regards to applying medicine at times.
Yeah, there is this fear, and I speak to doctors, and some doctors have actually said to me, "Gosh, I'd love to do what you do. I'd love to practice the way you do, but I'm too scared." And you don't have to ask why. It's because so many doctors get struck off the medical register when they even talk. I mean, take something so basic, we are, as humans, we are not only body and mind, are we? We also spirit. But doctors, certainly in the UK, who even approach the subject of spirit, are being told you'll be struck off the medical register if you talk about anything like that. You're not even, if you recognize that a person is struggling, say for example, from emotional trauma caused by awful things that have happened, there isn't a herb you can give them that's going to make them better. They need healing of memories, for example. Now, you as a doctor and as a practitioner, if you're not recognizing the spiritual side of a person's health, then you're also failing. So I feel that the modern approach to medicine has painted itself into a corner in many different ways, more so than I realized before we even started this interview.
Now, let's get on to the cholesterol book that you've written. And we've touched on statins, and Ansel Keys proved that cholesterol in the diet doesn't actually raise blood cholesterol levels. And so how is this whole myth around cholesterol kind of risen over the years, Brian?
Well, how it arose was by big business again. They wanted to pump in omega-6 fats, which they fed to animals, so just to make money, and they had to invent a reason. The reason was, this will help to lower your cholesterol. All right, 60 years down the line, we found out that 70% of people who have heart attacks do not have high cholesterol. No. So can we please stop pulling the wool over people's eyes? So what I decided to do was I looked at cholesterol and discovered, to my shock, that my medical training, that's my training to be a doctor, never mentioned how important cholesterol is, all its important functions in the body. All I learned about was that cholesterol is bad. Then I found in my studies that having very low cholesterol is really dangerous. That's where you can get awful illnesses. And I wrote about that in my book as well. But I think the main reason I wrote my book on cholesterol was because I've seen so many people, because I do a lot of work with chronic fatigue patients. I've seen a lot of people with chronic fatigue who were on statin drugs. Well, actually, they weren't suffering chronic fatigue syndrome. They were suffering statin drug fatigue. And I thought people need to understand how statins work and how we can minimize the side effects of those who have to take statins. The other reason I wrote my book was because of all the interactions that we know of today between drugs, herbs, and vitamins. And one of the more important books on my desk is a book called A to Z Guide to Drug, Herb, Vitamin Interactions. But you can't go looking up in different sources for each and every client. So I thought, well, let's put things together in one place. So where I talk about some of the treatments or supplements for helping people with cholesterol problems, we highlight which drugs they need to be careful of if they use that natural treatment, what side effects they can get from the natural treatment, because that's another misconception. People say, oh, if you take something natural, you won't get any side effects. That is not true. I think we both know that, but it highlights the fact that we are individuals. Each person will process chemicals, whether natural or unnatural, in a different way to their neighbor. We are all unique. And so I thought, well, let's find out what actually causes heart disease. And you'll find that high cholesterol on its own is not going to do it. You need other factors such as high levels of free radicals, or that means not having enough antioxidants, and inflammation in the blood vessels. You can't have cardiovascular disease without those other elements as well. And then the thing about fat, so many people say fats are bad. And I said, but that's rubbish. So what my research led me to is finding out that it's not fats that are bad. It's refined carbohydrates that are more to blame than fats. And to get a better understanding of how is it that cholesterol levels can rise if we eat refined sugars? How does that happen? And so my interest in the subject grew a lot. Then a number of years ago, I went to a massive congress actually on cholesterol. And it was given by consultant cardiologists for general practitioners. And I was there an entire day, and I never heard one word about giving coenzyme Q10 if you're prescribing a statin. In fact, the entire day was a waste of time because it was funded by pharmaceutical companies who promote statin drugs, and not a bad word was said about statins. And yet in my practice, I see plenty of bad things to do with statins. And what pleasure it gives me to enlighten someone as to what's actually happening, and we help them to deal with their cholesterol issue, and at the same time reducing the statin drug and giving them things like coenzyme Q10 where possible, because sometimes it's contraindicated. So, and they say, wow, I thought I was just getting old. And I'm going for walks. My wife and I we're doing things we never did before. I just thought I was getting old. That gives me such pleasure. And my wife, my wife Lynn, who's a cordon bleu, she's a qualified cordon bleu chef, but she doesn't cook that way. But she has tremendous knowledge in how to use chemistry in cooking. She put together some recipes for us, which are in the book. My daughter Amy, who is a brilliant artist, she's done some of the illustrations for me. And so my book's been a family affair, really. And but I use it myself as a quick reference, because I don't do cholesterol levels on their own. I do what's called a lipid profile.
Yeah.
And I have my own laboratory here where we get a full lipid profile within 5 minutes of a finger prick test. And so we're getting the total cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, the good cholesterol, the triglycerides, and we're getting the various ratios that we need of one to the other. And then I can do a quick reference at the back of the book. Near the back it tells you, if your problem is high triglycerides, what supplements would be best? to reduce them. And this has basically come from many years of experience. So some of my book is based on basic science, explaining what fats look like, what cholesterol looks like, how heart disease works, how statin drugs work, and how we can work together with the individual to improve the situation that they are finding themselves in. And using with each of the supplements where necessary, I've put in information on which drugs to avoid with that and what side effects one could experience with that supplement.
I didn't realise that by just eating 2 carrots a day, you could reduce your cholesterol by so much when I read your book.
Yeah. Well, what you find is that my philosophy is changing, which is a good thing. I think, thank God, my philosophies keep changing because it shows that we are aware of what's happening around us. So my philosophy used to be, because remember I came from a medical model, yeah? So my philosophy at first was prescribe a drug. Then when I became a consultant in nutritional medicine, it was prescribe a supplement. You see, now I've realized that actually if you're honest with the situation, you've got to look at the lifestyle, diet first, long before you start thinking of seeing a supplement as a drug. So what I'm starting to do is first put into place the good and natural things like exercise, drinking enough water, eating the right foods, and then see what effect that has on the levels, whatever you're looking at, whether it be sugar for diabetics or what, then introduce a supplement if necessary. And then if you're doing everything you think humanly possible in the natural world, then you can contemplate the thought of a prescription drug.
I had a conversation with somebody who refers their clients to me, and she said she'd seen the treatment plan that I'd actually given to the client. She was really surprised. And I said, why? And she said, well, because you said they were to chew their food properly, to take more time, to not be stressed while they ate, to eat it mindfully, and just to drink more water. She said, where were the supplements? She goes, I thought they'd need all these supplements. I said, until I get them eating properly, I really don't know truly whether they do need those supplements or not.
Yes. This is, but as I said to you, that's my philosophy as well. I think we are all going closer to the Hippocrates model. Hippocrates was no fool. And I think his model of, looking at your food, your water, your lifestyle, healthy family relationships, your spiritual development, these are all important things. And for any practitioner to discount them is arrogant and unprofessional, in my opinion.
Brian, I've hardly touched on cholesterol today with you, and I'd like to invite you back to do a second interview in a few weeks' time to really go into detail with me in regards to more information around cholesterol, because we actually got very sidetracked at the beginning of the interview, which isn't unlike me at all. So will you come back in a few weeks' time and do me a second interview on actual cholesterol itself and diet?
Certainly, I'd love to.
Okay, Brian, that's fantastic. I'll organise scheduling that. Now, Brian, just give people a little bit of an understanding on how they contact you and, if they want to come and see you and where you are specifically.
Okay, my name is Brian McDonogh, and that's spelled McDonogh, and I am practicing in a clinic called Eagle Clinic, as in the bird, Eagle Clinic, and we are based in Horsham, West Sussex, in England. And my telephone number is 01403 258 351. And I can also be contacted on email. My email address is Brian with an I, brian@eagleclinic.com.
Fantastic, Brian. This has been really enlightening. It's been absolutely lovely to talk to you today, and very appreciative that you've come on Food for Thought.
Thank you, Deborah. And